Morning. Today we're doing a little YouTube video on buddy Steve's truck. Probably a two-part thing on, he's got a air conditioning leak where he had some Freon, and within a couple days it stopped freaking, it stopped cooling his truck. So what we're doing is pan over to the compressor, Steve. We got a air line hooked up to an adapter I borrowed off a buddy of mine right here that goes to the low side to pressurize the system. And we got a bottle of Dawn dish soap and water that we can spray on the different connection points and see if we see some bubbles. And this is a lot cheaper than putting more Freon in it and using a dye thing, since the system is evacuated already. It lost all the Freon at some point. And so far I'm not seeing nothing. Okay, so what we're going to start doing is we're going to get at the rest of the connectors, and especially the compressor and connectors. We've got to take off the air tube going to the air filter, take off the fan shroud. I don't think we're going to have to mess with the coolant at all today, and once we get down there, the compressor is located down there somewhere. So once we get this stuff out of the way, we'll get at it. Alright, so I'm going to loosen up this screw here, loosen up this guy here, which we just did. Wiggle this out, pop this off. Disconnect this hose here from this. So the plan of attack is to change out the compressor, dryer, expansion valve. We did not find a leak, but Steve's found a good deal on a 3-piece kit with the seals and stuff, so he wants to change all that out and hope that fixes it, because if it doesn't, it's going to be in the dash somewhere, and that's bad. Anyway, so first option, 15mm wrench on the idler pulley right here, tensioner pulley. Pull it up like so, or release the belt. And then we'll get underneath and get the compressor belt. You'll undo these bolts right here for the compressor. There's probably 3 or 4 more like that on the bottom. Disconnect the bolts right here for those for the lines going in, and the electrical connector, and they'll take the compressor out. And if you pan over here, Steve, over the filter dryer, take that nut off there. We'll take off this bolt here and disconnect the electrical pressure switch connector there, and may or may not be a mounting bracket somewhere around there. I'll have to look at the new compressor, the new filter dryer, and that should come out easy enough. Put new seals on it, put it back in, vacuum down the system, add some oil first to the compressor, the right amount, and then hook everything up, vacuum it down, and charge it, and hopefully good to go. Yeah. Alright, so I got 2 bolts out on the bottom of the compressor here that you can't see underneath. I'd get them from the one from the bottom, one from the top. I got 1, 2, 3 more I got to do, but before I do that, I'm going to get into the dryer and get it loosened up. There's a band clamp right here with a bolt here that I have yet to identify. I think it's a 13mm. We'll take that off, and we'll start loosening up lines and get them out of the way too. Alright, okay, so now we're getting the lines loose. Get the nut off of that one. This line's broke loose and disconnected right there. And the expansion valve, it's expansion valve orifice is located right there. See the X thing in the middle of the mirror? Just take a pair of small needle nose and pull that out towards the rear of the truck, and that'll come right out. And then you got a new one, and we got a new one in the kit to put in there. Okay, also you see the old dryer on the right. This port right here had this pressure switch. That's the switch that turns on the compressor as long as you got pressure in the system high enough to close that switch. You have to swap that switch over and from the old filter dryer onto the new one, and make sure you put a new O-ring on it and use some refrigerant oil that you're going to put in your compressor, just to lightly dab the O-ring before you put it on there. Okay, so we've got an expansion tube. I don't know if you can see real good, but there appears to be some crud around this area right here. because it's really a screen, and it looks like it's got some dye in there where somebody was maybe trying to fix it before or troubleshoot it, but that's what most of the refrigerant oils are. The R34 134A comes with some dye in there anyway now, but that crud is not good. Could be indicative of a compressor failure. Okay, so you want to replace all the seals you can get to when you're doing AC work like this, which means the two on the evaporator core going in and out, which is a little bit of a challenge to get to the bottom one, but we got it. And then we also blew out the lines that are disconnected. A bunch of green dye stuff in there that doesn't need to be there. Anyway, getting ready to put it back together. Alright, there's the old compressor we got out of Steve's truck. Typically, you want to either look it up and tell how much oil came in the compressor in the system, which in this case is 8 ounces, and or you look at the old compressor and you see how much oil's in it, and there was none in this one. We rotated it around, dry as a bone. So that could be indicative of why this thing is not working like it should. So we're going to add 8 ounces of oil like the book calls for to the low side. Okay, so this guy comes with a cover plate to keep the ports nice and clean. I'm going to pull it off, put the oil in it, and then we're going to put it back on. First we're going to check and see how much oil is in there, because they usually ship with some oil. You want to get that oil out of there and put the 46 oil in it. Alright, so that's what we're going to do next. And then we'll put that plate back on there while we put the compressor back in so we don't lose any oil. Okay, so we ended up having a couple of leaks. We hooked up a compressor air pressure line to test it. We could definitely hear a leak right here on this guy right here, which we changed the seal on. Low pressure line going to our dryer. And the other line, the same line down here where it went to the compressor, because the seal it looks pretty close, but it was off enough, and the milled surface on the compressor itself was slightly smaller than the seal that was on there. So we got those fixed, and we're sucking down a good vacuum on it. We leak tested it for about 5 minutes just to check it, and now we're pumping it down. We'll leak test it again for a little while, make sure it doesn't leak, and then we'll add Freon to it, and should be good to go.